Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and chat to amazing humans about their journeys. For these episodes, we're talking about neurodiversity, and I'm so happy to introduce back to the conversation Lucy Williams. Welcome, Lucy.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome back. So I'm not going to do an introduction for you. Just briefly, just tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So my name is Lucy Williams. I am the co-owner of the Little HR department, mother of two boys, and married, and I live in Farnham. And I recently, I guess the reason I'm here today is because I got diagnosed in December last year with inattentive ADHD.
Brilliant. Okay, so thank you for sharing that so openly to start. We're going to talk about that. A story, as I always do with these. I just let you talk a little bit about sort of your life and neurodiversity, and of course the diagnosis that you had at the end of last year. So I'll just pass that over to you, Lucy.
Yeah, I've written some notes because
Brilliant.
I know myself and my thoughts can be scattered. So I like to write notes to kind of prompt myself. So I started looking into ADHD last year because I noticed that my son was having some challenges both at school and at home. And I wasn't sure about ADHD actually, because I think my understanding of it was that it was these sort of hyperactive, naughty boys, and he wasn't so hyperactive.
Okay.
And so I wasn't sure about ADHD, but then I started to read about it, and then learned that there are different behaviors, which I'll mention actually because I think it's helpful. So ADHD, although it talks about the hyperactivity, it's not necessarily hyperactivity. So there's normally, or there can be three different types of behaviors. So one is inattention. So getting distracted, having poor concentration, difficulty with organization skills. One is hyperactivity. So, perhaps someone that never slows down, talking, fidgeting, difficulty sticking on a task. And the other is impulsivity. So that could be, talking over people, interrupting, or it could be kind of taking risks as well. So I guess I educated myself a bit about it and realized that he could have it, and it someone can either have a sort of can have one or more, a combination of those symptoms.
Yeah.
And different people will display different symptoms within them as well. So it's not one size fits all, if that makes sense.
Yep.
I then started reading about ADHD behaviors and how they are often very different in boys and girls. And I started reading about how girls can be much more inattentive. And then I started reading about, the inattentive symptoms in girls. And I just thought, oh my God, this is me. I just recognized so much in myself reading about that. So things like failing to give close attention to details, making mistakes in activities, difficulty holding attention on tasks, difficulty following through on instructions and failing to finish things, getting easily distracted, and forgetfulness. Now, these are all things I think I've managed to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
So you can manage them, and I have managed them, but it doesn't come easy. It's quite difficult. And I think at that time in my life, I was feeling quite overwhelmed with the multitude of duties or duties as a mum, but just responsibilities and tasks that I have to do every day. And I was pretty exhausted as well. So it just started to fit in. I was thinking, gosh, maybe I do have this. Maybe that's what it is. And I just always had this slight feeling that there was, I say, something wrong with me. I think something different. I could never quite put my finger on it. So I decided to go ahead and get diagnosed. I looked at the NHS diagnosis, and there was like suspected 18-month waiting list or something.
Right.
Which once I started thinking about it, seemed like far too long.
Yeah.
So I decided to invest and go for a private diagnosis. And I saw a lovely psychiatrist called Dr. Daniel Morgan. And I had to fill out a bunch of forms before the assessment, just about what I found easy, difficult, etc.
Yeah.
And then in the meeting, or we kind of talked through, I guess, my mental health and the assessments that he completed, and he asked me a bunch of questions. And then, at the end of that meeting, he diagnosed me with moderate inattentive ADHD. And he, said that he did congratulate me. He sort of said, "You've obviously learned to live with it and manage it very well," which I now know that's also something that girls and women are very good at, masking it.
Yeah.
But he also said, I think that we can now make your life an awful lot easier, Lucy. And I felt really emotional at that point.
Right.
And I was
Yeah.
in the meeting. But yeah, sort of overwhelmed by the diagnosis, but also extremely happy. And then I, asked him, what next? And he said, well, you can consider medication. A lot of people find it extremely helpful. So I was a bit reluctant and a bit nervous about taking medication. And I asked him more about that. And he said, well, if you think ADHD it is almost like living with 5 radios on at the same time. And what the medication does is it can tune you in. So it's like listening to one channel.
Okay.
And I decided to go ahead with the medication. And that's absolutely what I found. It has, for me, been completely life-changing for the better, and made my life an awful lot easier. The irony is, actually, when I went to the pharmacy, I forgot the prescription at home. And I thought, I was just thinking, I do things like that. You see, I do things like that all the time.
Yeah.
And I thought, I really need this. I really need this help. So, so honestly, the medication has been really, really helpful for me. We did kind of play around with the dosage. So he started me on a certain dosage and then put me up to another one. And I felt like that was a bit too much. So then we, reduced it a bit. And now I think I've found the right dosage there. So yes, all in all, for me, it's been, the diagnosis has been incredibly helpful.
Brilliant. I love that. I do, I think that's so valuable, and what you've shared in terms of sort of when you started to realize things were representing in yourself. I think that's such a critical point. So this is talking, this is recent history that this diagnosis has taken place. So we're talking within the last 5 months or 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What about life before then? How was everything in sort of, reflecting now? Because now you understand what's going on, you can look backwards and start to think, okay, maybe that was present there, or maybe that was.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about some of those elements?
Yeah, no, I think I've, I definitely reflect, and I think I had it all my life. And I think, so, I look back at school, I was very clumsy.
Right.
Probably took risks, or was slightly impulsive with myself, was often injured, doing, occasionally doing silly things. Sometimes people said I was a bit away with the fairies, or wasn't listening. I didn't find the educational environment very easy. I found exams extremely hard. So having to firstly sit still and concentrate for like 4 hours at a time, that was really tough. And having to recall massive amounts of information and then regurgitate them in an exam, that was also incredibly hard for me. So I did okay at school, but not brilliantly. Yeah, and it was something I found hard. And things like exams, I I reflect now and think, I'd look around the room and it seemed like everyone else was finished, and I'd be writing down to the absolute the last buzzer, if you like.
Right.
And I do process things more slowly. And because I know I have a slight I can make mistakes, I do have to work more slowly than perhaps other people to make sure I pick them up.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah, again, fascinating. Relationships. So obviously you have a diagnosis now with ADHD, and how has that been received by others around you?
I'd say really positively, actually. I think it's had really positive repercussions on my relationships.
Yeah.
I can be really bad at keeping in contact with people. So some family members used to find that frustrating, and I think now they understand it wasn't intentional. It's just the difficulty of juggling multiple tasks. So I think it's really helped them understand me better. And my children, my boys know about it. Again, it helps them understand me. And my husband was already brilliant. It's funny, he because I am forgetful and lose things a lot, he's put an air tag on my keys, so I can locate them, which I would lose them several times a day.
Right.
Also my phone, he's got sort of trackers on that kind of stuff, and I literally have like my name and number printed in things like my coats and anything important, because I would lose them and leave them places. Yeah.
Oh, no.
But that's all become a lot easier since I've been on the medication, and I'm much better at like phoning people and speaking to my family and things like that now. It's all just easier because I just feel, I can concentrate and focus on things much better. I feel wholly much calmer and in control of things and much less overwhelmed.
Brilliant. Well, it sounds like the medication is definitely helping, and it sounds like what you're doing is the right things, and having support is really useful there as well. Having people around you that understand, and you're able to talk about it.
And also at work, I've been open about it with my team. So they know things now, like to remind me about things, and they're brilliant. They would check up and remind me about things. Perhaps not to interrupt me if I'm doing pieces of work, because the concentration takes a lot. So it's just, honestly, in all elements of my life, it's really helped my relationships.
Brilliant. So good. Have you seen any negatives from the diagnosis at all? Anything you could think of? Any side effects of the medication maybe, or anything?
I mean, I think a few people, I suspect, are a bit skeptical about the diagnosis or don't understand it.
Right.
I think the medication's been fine. The only thing is I do get quite a dry mouth. I said to you earlier, I keep a drink next to me now because I do get a dry mouth. But no, I honestly can't think of any other negatives. No.
But that's a positive thing, though, isn't it? That you can't think of any negatives that have happened because of the diagnosis, with the exception of very, very tiny or small little things, which is just that thing about encouraging others to go forward for a diagnosis if they're struggling with something, or if there's something they need to adjust, or if they're worried that they might have that. So it's really, really important. What about holistic things to look after yourself? Have you changed or adapted anything for yourself since the diagnosis?
I think I work in a different way.
Okay.
I was pretty good anyway. I think I'd learned to deal with things like I have reminders on everything. On my diary, I have reminders that pop up for home things and work things, but I continue to do that, and I have lots of to-do lists. I for work, I found a kind of online platform for managing tasks, which I find even better than what I was using before.
Okay.
So yeah, it's things like that, just knowing yourself. I just know myself better. And I'm starting to work in a slightly different and better way.
Okay, that's good. That's improvement. And what about sort of the self-care elements for you? Any adjustments to that?
Well, I'm not very good at that anyway.
Well, I'm not saying anything.
But I do struggle with that. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I have a busy life,
Yeah.
work and family, but I do get out every day to walk the dog.
Okay. Yeah.
And I carve that time out because it's very good for me.
Yeah.
Sacred time. Out and about. Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. So you got to keep doing that.
Absolutely.
So sort of other questions that come off all of this, around sort of life with ADHD, the future for you, what do you want to do in terms of sort of your ambitions? Do you see the future? Do you see things that you want to do in the future now that you understand and have harnessed the power?
Yes. I mean, I think I do feel it's important to raise awareness.
Yep.
I think it's important to know that it's normal and it just doesn't matter. For me, the reason for diagnosis is to understand myself better, and anything that's going to help my life or make it easier is a good thing. That's how I personally feel about it.
Yep.
But no, I mean, in terms of my life, I think, I look back and I think despite the challenges I had, I have 2 degrees. One of them's a master's degree. I, have amazing family friends around me. I co-run my own business. So, I don't think it needs to hold you back in any way. I just think it will all be a bit easier, less exhausting for me going forward. So no, I mean, in terms of my dreams, I want to continue to lead a long and happy life and grow the business. Yeah. And nothing's holding me back, and it's just a bit easier.
I find it fascinating because everything that you just explained or talked about were things that you did before you knew you had ADHD. And now you've got clarity, you've got an understanding, and you've got an awareness of what's going on. And now the future is different, right? Does that make sense?
Brighter, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, clearer. You've got one radio to listen to each time you tune in, right? I find that fascinating, that concept of the radios. I really like that. So I did.
No, it's really good. Another one that someone said to me was a traffic light. So it could be like 4 traffic lights on at a time, and you're not sure which one to listen to. And then it's like suddenly one is green.
Okay. Yeah.
Similar concept. But
interesting. Yeah. Sensory. Let me just throw sensory in there, because something that I've been hearing quite a lot around sort of sensory is with autism, ASD, ADHD, ADD, with other conversations around sort of sensory overload. So is there anything in particular that you find sort of overwhelming? I found some really interesting ones through other conversations, but anything that sort of stands out for you?
Yes. Noise.
Okay.
I don't like lots of noise.
Okay.
And funny enough, when I was little, I was really scared of, I was quite noise sensitive. I was very scared of balloons and banging and guns and things like that. Hated it, absolutely hated it. I'm not so worried about those now, but I don't love lots of noise, just because it's for me uber distracting, and then I find it all difficult and a bit overwhelming.
Right. Okay.
But also being in a busy restaurant or something like that would often be a bit overwhelming, because there's so much going on all the time, and ADHD is an overactive brain. Yep. So you're like, but again, with the medication, I notice now I'm much able to just sit and have a conversation with someone without feeling being really distracted by everything else going on.
Brilliant. Yeah, well, it seems to be doing its job then, if that's helping you to fine tune into things. And those are some of the things that other people have explored and talked about as well, around the sensory overload, especially around noisy environments, and that's lots of sounds. It's a little bit too, and so it's interesting. So a quiet office is where you prefer to be, right, Lucy? Just somewhere more settled?
Yes, but again, if I need to really concentrate on something,
Yeah.
I can put these, because obviously I share an office with Tracy, my business partner, who, as you know, is equally loud to me. So I can put these on, and they've got a noise cancelling function.
Okay.
So if I really need to,
Yeah.
it's
Zone out.
difficult for me to drown noises out, I can put these on. That really helps.
Brilliant.
I need
Yeah.
to just concentrate on something. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Anything else left on your sheet there that you wanted to talk about or to say? We're coming right towards the end of this, Lucy.
Yeah. I think the only thing is I would just like to mention how ADHD is massively misunderstood and misdiagnosed in girls. I think the statistics are something like 1 in every girl is diagnosed in comparison to every 10 boys. And everyone still has this sort of stereotype of the naughty boy at school. It's not at all like that. It's much broader, and girls are subsequently, massively undiagnosed. And that's a terrible shame, because it can really affect mental health in a negative way, and self-esteem, and make individuals feel kind of shame or confusion or anything like that. So I just think it's important, and what you're doing is amazing, because I think it's super important to raise awareness and education about ADHD and what it is, and how you can get diagnosed and what the benefits are.
Wow. And I think you've explored all of those elements. And I think you've given us a very solid reason why people should take notice and understand a little bit more. And, what was interesting, if we go right back to the beginning of when you started talking, was you were doing some research. You were learning a bit about something that you didn't even know was something that you would have necessarily for yourself. And it links into something that I keep saying, which is, we all, the biggest problem we have is we only ever know what we need to know when we need to know it. So we only do our learning when we're told we've got a problem. These conversations are really about helping people to hear stories of real people going through real life experiences. And actually, that's a lesson in itself, isn't it? So, it's been incredible, Lucy. I love talking to you.
Likewise.
It's been wonderful to see you again, and to hear your story, evolving, because the last time we spoke, it wasn't about ADHD and neurodiversity, but thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I really do appreciate it. Any final comments or thoughts from you? Any lovely quotes that you've heard recently?
No, not okay. I can remember.
That's a real testing question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I just like to say, if anyone does watch this and thinks that they might have it, or know someone who might, please feel free to reach out to me and have a chat. Since opening up about it, it's amazing how many people, friends, connections, whatever, have come forward to ask me and think they might have it, or so I'm very open about it. If I can help anyone in any way, then
brilliant.
Please give me a shout.
Thank you so much, Lucy, and I will put your details in the comments to this as well. So really appreciate it. Wishing you all the very best in everything you're doing, and keep being an amazing human.
Thank you.
Thank you.